Welcome to Double Fries No Slaw. It is Tuesday, August 3rd. I've said the date for about a year now on these things. I have no idea why, but if people are listening, maybe they don't know what the date is and they can find out. But this is a special date. This is something a little bit different than we've ever done before. It's our first time hitting this milestone, but we made it 1 year. Richie, happy 1 year anniversary to us. How's it feel to have officially been doing that? This is, 1 year ago today. Our first episode dropped on iTunes. We had DeMarcus Walker and Eddie Staples on. How's it feel to have been doing this for a year? No weeks off just yet.
Yeah, and I was just going to mention that, TJ, that's the craziest part. We did not miss a single week, and there's been many weeks where we've done 2 or 3 episodes. So the consistency has been awesome. I've enjoyed it. Talk about a year straight, not missing a week, but I talk about Florida State sports all the time. That whether to anyone who will listen, whether it's my wife, my friends, whatever it may be. So I don't really consider it like work or a huge milestone that I, sit in front of a computer and talk about Florida State sports, but it's been a lot of fun. And I've loved the engagement from the listeners and the feedback we've gotten. It's been a fun year.
Yeah, no, it really has. A lot of stuff has changed over the last year. We've had to be creative with some different stuff. We started this in the middle of a pandemic. I don't know. It's been neat. Like there's been a lot of really, really cool stuff that we've been able to do because of the pod and with the pod. And so I've definitely enjoyed it. We're going to do some reminiscing here today. We're going to hand out some awards, not to ourselves, but we're going to hand out some awards to different folks that we listed some nominations on Sunday night, and then we'll reminisce a little bit and we'll get out of here. So kind of a short show where we can just kind of, I don't know, you usually say like raise a glass, but maybe raise like a little fry cup or something, to us, because that seems more on brand. We'll get into some reminiscing here in just a minute, but let's get into our awards that we gave out the other day, or that we had voted on the other day, that we voted on as a team, that we put out on social media for people to vote on. I guess we'll jump into that and then we'll roll a little bit later. Anything else you want to say about the show before we start reminiscing?
I'm excited for our first annual Duffins, DFNS, Double Fries No Slaw. We're calling it the Duffins. So shout out to Michael Scott and the Dundies, a little play off that. But yeah, like TJ mentioned, we everyone that kind of on our staff, so to speak, all had a vote, and we ran some Twitter polls, and we gave each of those counted as 2 votes. So we gave the listeners a little more power, and I no major surprises, I don't think. Actually, there were a few now that I think about it, looking at who won, who didn't. But let's get into it. I'm excited to present these awards.
Sorry to delay us just a little bit more, but I always do this at the end of the show, and I want to do this at the beginning. I want to shout out the team that works with us, that their votes went into this. And I want to shout them out here at the beginning because most people don't listen to podcasts all the way through. And so I don't want you to just miss it at the very end. Obviously, we've got Harlan Harris, who helps us a ton. He produces this show. He's always in here. There he is if you're watching on video. We appreciate Harlan and everything that he does for us. He is super flexible as far as time goes. He was he left his fiance in the hospital one night to go home and be able to produce the show for us. And so he's sold out, he's dedicated. And so we appreciate Harlan for all that he does. We told him this show would be airing at one time tonight. And then we ended up changing the hours to 3 hours different. And like nothing, he was just like, yeah, sure. No big deal. We'll do that. So shout out Harlan, shout out Brian Hathaway, who does all of our graphics and images. I text Brian once a day and I'm like, hey, can you work on this? Can you make this? Can you make that? And he always does it. And so appreciate him and all of his help and all the work that he does. We made some graphics for the winners here in just a minute that we'll announce. And so you'll get to see some of his work there. But again, he's really done a lot to help us. Ed Kennedy is our lead editor for the website. He kind of checks everything to make sure that when I'm writing something or somebody else is writing something, it sounds good and it makes sense grammatically. He has a degree in editing, writing, and maybe journal. I don't know. Editing and writing for sure. And then I forget what the third part of his degree is, but Ed is perfect for that. Dustin Franklin and Michael Settle have joined the crew. Those guys and Brian from the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Review podcast do a little bit of writing for us. Michael also went to the ACC kickoff days with me. So did I get everybody, Richie? I didn't leave anybody out, right? Ed, Brian, Dustin.
Yeah, shout out Ed for being in our group chat and having the worst draft ever.
Ed will never live down the all-time FSU draft. So anyway, if you haven't listened to those are good. But I want to shout out the guys, obviously myself, Richie, appreciate it as well. All that those guys do, and they make us look good. So without further ado, we will actually get into our awards. First up, we'll alternate these. Do you have the document up, Richie? We can go back and forth. I can text it to you if you need me to. But let's go back and forth on these so that people don't have to hear my voice too much more. First up was our team of the year. The nominees being women's tennis, soccer, men's golf, and softball. And based on their run in Oklahoma City, both our team and the fans ended up going with softball. It was a unanimous vote. I think it was the only unanimous vote that we had on the no, there was one more unanimous vote. The first one and the last one here are going to be unanimous votes. But shout out to
clean sweep. Yep.
Softball for being our team of the year. Really good performances by a bunch of teams at FSU. Obviously, soccer made the national championship. I think softball probably ends up winning this one because it was unexpected. Soccer was number one all year. The way that their season finished, unfortunately, was kind of, a heartbreaker. And whereas the way that softball finished, though they didn't win, it was really something to it was more about the run than the final game or the final result. Whereas soccer was a kick to the what. So first up, softball, our first Duffins award goes to softball. All right, you take the next one.
Yeah, and just to touch on that real quick, it was really two choices, right? It was soccer and softball. We had a lot of great teams this year, but softball, I think they definitely deserved it. But it's wild to think that you can be the best soccer team in the entire country, lose a game in PKs, which eventually, I'm sure they're going to be upset that they don't have that national title, but it lost them the Duffins, and that's what's really going to sting with them. But they'll be back next year. Obviously, Coach Kokorin is phenomenal. He's going to have those ladies ready to compete for natties on a regular basis. We may be talking to him here in the near future. So a little fun little teaser right there. But yeah, let's go to male athlete of the year. You had the person who I voted for, John Pock, most accomplished golfer in Florida State history. You think of Paul Azinger, Brooks Koepka, Daniel Berger, Jonas Blix. Pock was better than all of them at Florida State. Scotty Barnes, obviously the number four pick in the NBA draft. Matt Nelson, just drafted it just outside the first round, already signed a $2 million contract. And Asante Samuel Jr., one of the few bright spots of Florida State football this year. And the winner ended up by voting being Matthew Nelson, former Double Fries No Slog guest. So shout out to Matt Nelson. He was a really good interview. I'm expecting a lot of big things from him in the big leagues, and well-deserved. Like I said, I did not vote for him, but I cannot hate on this selection because that was a really good that was a tough category because there's a lot of good options there.
Yeah, I think what you'll find and what you guys will see is that it's kind of like the East Coast bias, right? With the national writers and the ACC and the SEC and the Big Ten, and how nobody loves the Pac-12 because nobody's up at 10 p.m. watching games, right? Or they're doing that much less or passed out or whatever. But I think that what you're going to find in a lot of these awards is that Richie and I were able to become pretty familiar with a lot of the, quote unquote, smaller or Olympic type sports. Olympics definitely a better way to say that. But, but not everybody has been able to be familiar with those. And so it's hard to expect fans and, even newer guys that are on our team to vote for folks that they're not aware of. So they go with a name that is familiar to them. I think that may have been a little bit of what happened, with this next one, which I think you had a couple of really, really phenomenal choices that to pick from female athlete of the year. Beatrice Wallen of FSU women's golf, Catherine Sandercock, obviously pitcher for the softball team. Nandini Das was an All-American, made it to, I believe, the quarterfinals of the the doubles tournament, and then also made the Elite Eight at the national championships with the team, obviously. So made the Elite Eight, made the quarterfinals in doubles with who was it? Andrea. Yeah. So Nadine Doss, and then Jalen Howell, who was a semifinalist or was a finalist for, Women's College Athlete of the Year with the ESPYs, right?
Yeah.
The winner there went to not a sweep, but certainly impressive, went to Catherine Sander-Cox. So our female athlete of the year went to FSU's pitcher. She was fantastic. Absolutely nothing away from her at all. I think you had some other really, really good ladies that didn't get as much TV time as she did. And so that may have impacted voting. But what's cool about her is she could win this. She could win that a few more years, and she very well may.
Yeah.
Like she may win this
Right?
3 years in a row, which would be incredible. So I'm kind of hoping she does. And there's a great chance at it too. There's a good chance that kind of happens for sure. So Richie's dog is going a little bit crazy, so I'm going to go ahead and do the next category, and then I will let him go on from there. So after female athlete of the year, we'll try and blow through some of these because I don't want to take up a ton of time on it, but thanks for hanging out. Thanks for tuning in. Coach of the year went down to our coaches that really, much like softball, made it the farthest, right? So we didn't pull an ACC and just pick a coach out of the middle of nowhere that didn't deserve, all of our coaches at FSU were great, but we picked coaches that we thought their teams, made it pretty far and probably deserved to be in it. Again, we went through the nominations last week, so I don't necessarily feel the need to go through the nominations every single time. But what I will say, this was Coach Krikorian over at soccer, Trey Jones, Jennifer Hyde. Special shout out to Brooke Niles, who also was fantastic, and her team did make the national championships as well. They were one of the last 8 teams there as well. But our winner here went to Coach Almeida with softball. I don't think anybody would deny or doubt that what she did was not that everybody else wasn't impressive. I feel like it's weird to automatically categorize 3 or 4 people that lost. But what Coach Almeida was able to do in rebounding from losing at the ACC championships or the ACC championship and get her team to go on the run that they did on the road in Baton Rouge, and then after losing the first game in the Women's College World Series is just fantastic. And so Coach Almeida, Coach of the Year, 3 or 4 time Double Fries No Slaw guest.
Friend of the show. So happy for her, man. She's a really cool lady too. Could not be happier for her. I think most of us voted for her. I mean, we had there were some other options in there as well. I actually voted for Trey Jones just because I'm a homer and I knew he wasn't going to win anyway, but I went with it. But yeah, we go from Coach of the Year to Game of the Year, and there were a lot of good ones. Beach volleyball upset #1 LSU. Women's hoops, shout out to Brooke Wyckoff, a friend of the show as well. Upset #3 Louisville on the road, which nobody saw that coming. Was
that on the road? Was that on the road? I thought that was at home.
I thought it was on the road, but either way, they, underranked Florida State beating a #3 Louisville, huge deal. My vote was actually for Florida State, Leonard Hamilton men's basketball, for getting 7 in a row against Florida, just because I cannot stand those guys. My freshman year, I had to watch them win a national championship. So it's good to see that, we now own that program. But the winner, which really should surprise nobody because football is king, upset over #5 UNC. Phenomenal night. We'll talk about that night, I'm sure, coming up here in a little bit later. But yeah, I mean, nobody expected Florida State to win that game. 8 p.m. kickoff in Doak. The only shame about that game was there was only 20% capacity or whatever it was, because Doak would have been rocking that night.
Would have been, and it was for the crowd that was there. It was pretty insane, and yeah, a heck of a win there. I love that all of the wins, besides basketball, but 3 of the wins were massive upsets.
Yeah.
You've got football beating the #5 team in the country, women's hoops beating the #3 team in the country. I did look that up. That was in Tallahassee. But then you've got beach volleyball beating #1 LSU. Again, they were fantastic this year. and that's why we have them in so many categories. And not as many people are maybe as familiar with them as they are with some of the other sports, but Coach Niles does a fantastic job with those ladies. But football over UNC, I mean, that was a tough one that just about everybody picked. Richie took hoops. I took women's hoops over Louisville. I just basically said that, them beating them was more impressive, but then both of them were really impressive. But yeah, like some fun games that we got to witness this year. Okay, play of the year. This one did go to Richie the way he voted. Richie was told, you could tell Richie was a homer. He only voted for basketball and golf the entire time. But play of the year, we have Kando's pick 6, which is huge. Muffley's hurdle and tag, which in my opinion should have won this. Like, I did vote for that.
I thought that's what was going to win. I really did.
Phenomenal
play.
But you didn't pick it. You're such a homer.
Yeah, because the winner, we'll get to the winner, but yeah.
Muffley's hurdle and tag, like, going absolutely viral everywhere. And we got to talk with Coach about that. Like, I thought that would win. It didn't. I was the only one to take it. So, Josie, like, at least I had you. Like, when you stare all these people down that didn't vote for you, like, just don't stare me down. Like, don't do the crazy eye stare at me. Pox clinching putt at the Calusa Cup. And then Barnes's buzzer beater, which beat Indiana really early in the year. This freshman come in and
ACC
true freshman,
Big Ten challenge,
to win that. That was massive. I mean, I'll give you that. I mean, I still like Muffley's hurdle and tag, but I understand that at the end of the day, it was crazy impressive, but it was just an out, right? Yeah. Like, that's kind of the importance of Barnes's buzzer beater.
The fearlessness of a true freshman, and I believe this was in overtime when he hit it as well. But the fact that he took the ball, court to court, like, he's the only one who touched the ball. It got to him. He's like, okay, I'm going to go win this. And he did. I think he hit it with like 1.6 seconds left, but I believe Indiana was out of timeout. So they were really screwed off from their standpoint. So shout out Scotty Barnes. And again, number 4 pick, Toronto Raptors. I saw, we talked about how Drake shouted him out on his Instagram the other day. And now Drake's posting pictures with him and Scotty Barnes and the other Raptors draft pick this morning. Shout out to him. I'm glad he got an award because it's well-deserved in my opinion.
Probably means more to him than being drafted number 4 overall. We're keeping that buck.
I don't know, man. That paycheck is probably going to look pretty nice when number 4 paycheck rolls around.
When he sees us tag him in this on Instagram tomorrow, he's going to probably tear up. So, like, don't sell us short. You got the next one, podcast.
Yeah, so podcast, and we've had so many good ones. So we tried to keep this to Florida State centric because we've had a lot of really good national guys, Kirk Herbstreit, Andy Staples, a lot of them, but we wanted to keep it Florida State centric. So my by far favorite professor I ever took a class with, Mark Ziegler, was a nominee. Obviously Gene Deckerhoff's the voice of the Seminoles, but the other voice of the Seminoles, Jeff Cameron, he was up there. Coach Hyde, Coach A, both in there as well. But the winner, the CEO of Seminole Boosters, and who I hope will be our next athletic director, friend of the show, multiple-time guest, Michael Alford. Congratulations. He also won the fan vote, which was pretty cool because I was really curious to see who would win that one. And for Alford to beat out Jeff Cameron in a fan vote, that's pretty impressive.
I think the fan base understands and recognizes what he's done for the boosters and the athletic department and the college in general. And so I think there's a lot of appreciation for that. I also think he's just so real. I mean, not that anybody that's on the show isn't, right? Like, I mean, it's not to say that somebody else isn't, but I mean, he's fun and he's funny. And he I think that people have heard from Cameron for 20 plus years. And not that, I mean, nobody's tired of hearing from Cameron. Like, I love the guy and we're going to talk about him because I think he was probably the best actual interview that we did, kind of all year. Cause I could just listen to him talk forever, but I think it's the fact that people got to kind of learn more about who Michael Alford was, realize the kind of person he was, the kind of guy he was, his love for this university. He's only really been at it for a short time, but I think it was a little bit different. I totally didn't put him on here, but guest of the year, there you go, his picture. I think I also forgot. I forgot what did we do just before that? play of the year. There was Barnes's buzzer beater for sure against Indiana. So anyway, Alford wins that one. But man, we had some great guests this year. So all right, I got this one. This was a fun one. Fan favorite play of the year. So we had some interesting ones for this one. Interesting nominations. We had Jordan Travis's, dribbling the football off of the ground like a basketball, scoring against Louisville. Mason's home run against LSU, and I believe that one was in the 8th inning to tie it up, and then we walked it off in the 9th. Cabell and Nelson's home runs to beat Southern Miss in the regional, but the winner was, again, I think Richie probably rigged this one, but the winner on this one was Barnes's poster dunk, and so I thought that was interesting. I really thought that Liz might get that one, but she didn't, and we've got Barnes taking home his 2nd award of the evening. Yeah,
and I was honestly a little surprised that won the fan vote as well.
I thought Mason would take the fan vote.
See, I was thinking Mason or Jordan Travis because obviously football's king, but I think people just remember that if they're like me, they're like, man, like he dunked on several different UF players in that game. So they're just like the collection of all the posters he had in that one game got him the nod. So, man, what a week for Scotty Barnes. He got picked number 4 in the NBA draft, and he also receives 2 Duffins awards. This is a great week for Scotty Barnes, by the way.
Yeah, no doubt. It's pretty absurd, the resume he's putting together here on our show. All right, you got the next one, then I'll do the last one.
All right. Yeah. So performance of the year, and this was either individual or team. One of the most fun weeks of not the most fun baseball season, but the program's obviously moving in a great direction under Meat. But the baseball team outscored Florida and Miami 44-4 in 1 week. That was the nominee. Track and field, when both the men's and women's won the ACC championship. Phenomenal performance from them. Men's golf dominating the Tallahassee Regional. They were 34 under par, while the second place team was 17 under par at one point. They literally lapped the field. But I have to agree with this one, even though, again, I'm a homer and I voted for golf. But the winner, Kaylee Mudge, 5 for 5 in Game 1 of the College World Series. Just a phenomenal showing. Really unbelievable when you think about it. We've spoke to her, so congratulations to her, because that's 5 for 5 in a softball game. It's just ridiculous when you think about it, especially the biggest stage there is for college softball.
Yeah, she also ended up in that College World Series, breaking Jesse Warren's record of most hits in a College World Series. So, that performance was fantastic. It got, it was an easy winner there. Baseball week was pretty impressive too. That 44-4 was pretty awesome.
Wild.
So, shout out to Kaylee Mudge. She was fantastic. There's a graphic for it for those watching. She was really, really good, and excited to see her, back again next year. Hopefully she can go 6 for 6 in a game, and break her own record. So, all right, this one's the most fun. This is the one that I think we're all here waiting for. My favorite category, which I've reached out to a couple people at FSU to see kind of what we can make happen that week. That's not even a joke. Like, I truly have asked a couple of questions about this. The event, so hopefully you'll get some of these, something like these. I can't guarantee like who would be doing what, but hopefully you'll get something like these in the very near future. So stay tuned to Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all those places. I'll even make a TikTok if any of these things happen. So Double Fries No Slaw or Double Fries Pod is where you can search it all. The event that Richie is most likely to lose in, right? Like, we're saying he'd probably go 0 for 4.
Yeah, 100%.
But the one that, like, he absolutely has no chance. And so, she's already won 1 award tonight, and she ends up winning this one too. The nominees being best of 5 free throws versus Bianca Jackson. You might have a good chance in that one. Just if you can get hot and hit 5 for 5, like maybe she.
If I make the first one, there's a chance. If I miss the first one, it's over.
You're out. Yeah, because you'll miss another one in the last 4. So, the closest to the hole against John Pock. He's not even in Tallahassee, but I don't know if he's going to be at Labor Day weekend or not. I guess we can reach out and ask. Return a serve from Vic Allen of FSU women's tennis. And then last, the winner, Could Richie get on base in an at-bat against Sandercock? Either hit by pitch, drop
might
strike
be my
three,
only hope.
drop strike three. That might be the way to do it. You know, I don't think Anna's going to drop a ball, but I mean, you never.
And let's not act like I could run to first base quicker than she could get it there, even if she did drop it.
You know, a walk. Maybe if you just don't swing and just hope that she's a little wild.
That might be my best bet, just to not swing the bat.
So, or hit by pitch, you know, lean into one. So we said that this was a sweep. Like the event that he has the least chance would be getting on base against Sandercock. Richie, I want you to see those eyes.
That mask.
When we get to Tallahassee,
when
we get to Tallahassee, I want you to see those eyes.
So I'm officially wanting to change this to getting on base versus a pitching machine, because I would soil myself if she was staring me down like that and throwing like rising pitches that I've never seen in my life. I have no idea how they do it. But yeah, I totally agree with all of you guys and the fan vote on this one. Like you said, TJ, 0-4 is likely the most likely outcome, but zero chance I could, get on base. Even if I made contact with the ball, that Florida State softball team, they're the team of the year for a reason. They are so good. They're not letting me get to first base.
Yeah, no, you're in trouble. Like it needs to be like a ball that you swing out that's like way outside of the zone and like ricochets hard off the wall and like goes up the third baseline or something like that. Cause then maybe you can get to first base. But even then, like if Sydney gets the ball in her hand, like I still don't trust you. Like I think that she's got a great chance. So it'd have to be really wire. Like it'd have to go over the back, like over the net. Like that's the only way. So anyway, those were fun. Those were cool to do. We'll post all those pictures on our social medias and stuff. And thanks for everybody that voted and took part in that. There was hundreds of votes over the last couple of days. And so thanks for doing that. That was fun. So thanks for humoring us. All right, let's reminisce a little bit and then let's get out of here. We'll wish ourselves a happy anniversary and go, and then talk about anything that we think is worth talking about, on the back end of this.
Let's bring Harlan, our producer, in here.
He said he didn't want to do these, but Harlan, if you want to jump in.
He's coming in. Come on.
Y'all gonna put me on the spot.
All right, so the first one we'll do, and I wrote some of these down. If there's anything else you guys want to bring up as well, I mean, certainly feel free to. We've been on for about 27 minutes, so let's only keep this to like 20 more minutes and let's get out of here. But do you guys have a favorite moment from the podcast from the last year?
So I'll start, and I think me and Harlan had one of the same ones. But for me, even going back to the Rollcast, doing the basketball minute, there was no cooler moment for me than getting the chance to interview Coach Hamilton. I think he is an amazing coach, an amazing person. Just I love everything he stands for. And for him taking, 20, 25 minutes out of his night to come hang out with us, that to me was the coolest thing.
Yeah, I think it's the Coach Hamilton. It's really all of the coaches and players and people around FSU that we've been able to not only interview, but like truly develop a relationship with, I'm just a massive FSU fan. And so when I am uploading, stupid stuff like this, but when I'm uploading a picture of my kids on 4th of July and FSU's women's volleyball coach, Brooke Niles, likes that picture because we actually have a relationship, it's not just, oh, I interviewed you one time and that's it. She shot me a message when her husband, Nick, was in the Olympics and playing, and we were tweeting about it and stuff, and just like, hey, thanks for, all the support, and tagged her in pictures of my kids wearing USA stuff when he was playing. And, Coach Proctor sending us pictures of him and Katrina in Tokyo, Coach Almeida sending us pictures of them and her in Tokyo after they won the bronze medal there. Shout out her for that. Again, just another feather in her cap from the Coach of the Year. But the fact that we've been able to, so it's not like one moment or one interview. It's just kind of the fact that I think we try to do things the right way. We are loyal to Florida State, and we try to be, cheerleaders for the school. And because of that, we've been able to develop some really, really cool relationships with a lot of people in and around and connected to Florida State, whether that be former players, whether that be radio guys like Cameron, whether that be national media guys like Herb Street or Staples or Adelson or Hale. I saw Andrew Adelson and David Hale up at ACC kickoff, and we chatted about different breweries that we were going to that night and stuff like that. And they were really cool. And so, yeah, Hale recommended both a brewery and a place for my wife to go eat. Both of them were fantastic, but that has been my favorite. Yeah. So it's not one moment, man. It's just really the whole thing of what we've been able to do as far as developing relationships.
And I want to piggyback on that real quick because it's something that, my wife said to me. We were talking about, these awards and everything. And she's like, it's crazy how many coaches you've talked to. And it got me thinking, there's a ton of really good Florida State football podcasts out there. There's a bunch of them. But I feel like we're one of the very few true Florida State sports podcasts. And I don't know if that's the lane we were trying to get in when we started this thing. It's kind of where we ended up. And I could not be happier. Like you said, TJ, these relationships with these coaches, with these student athletes has been phenomenal. I love it. I love being a true Florida State sports podcast as opposed to just, putting all our eggs in the football basket. Harlan, how about you, man? I remember your first show that you did with us.
Yeah. So my favorite.
Which one was it? Which one was? I don't remember which one it was. I feel like you've been here since the start. Which one was it?
I don't even remember. I just remember TJ having me hook up everything when we were using OBS, and that was a lot more complicated than this. So I didn't come on much then. I remember Chris Ricks was the first one to actually bring. That was the first time I ever went on. Was when Chris Ricks was like, "Hey Harlan, let's get him in here," and I was like, "Oh God!" I
was like, "Hey Chris, why don't you relax a little bit?"
My favorite moment though is probably gonna go with more recently, the Matt Nelson interview. I played catcher in college. He did, getting him on, being able to talk to him just about some typical like player to player baseball questions and a little peek behind the curtain of him talking to some MLB teams, which I won't say what was said, but that was just so cool. And he hung out with us for another 10, 15 minutes after the pod was over. So that was probably my favorite.
Yeah, I wish I'd have been recording that and could put it like behind a Patreon wall or something like that because, he was fantastic. And like you said, he hung around for a few more minutes and like kind of told us some stuff that we couldn't repeat and a little bit about the draft process that was really, really neat. So I will agree with Richie though, like getting Hamilton was kind of like a, oh my goodness moment. Like obviously Kirk was incredible too. Like, Kirk Herbstreit literally responded to me and said my name, and I'm like, dude, like that's my hero, like what
the
in
fact
the world?
That Kirk Herbstreit hung out for almost an hour with us was wild to me. Like, you have nothing better to do on a Sunday during college football season than coming out with us for an hour. Such a cool thing. And me officially breaking the news that Will Muschamp had been fired to Kirk Herbstreit might be my favorite moment, actually.
I forgot about that. Yeah. So anyway, a lot of cool moments. I mean, we could sit here and talk about moments the whole night. All right. So that was kind of like some favorite ones that we had. Funniest. What was the funniest thing? Harlan, you can go first.
Oh, I'm so glad you came to me first. The funniest moment, hands down, was after the UNC game, instant reaction on Discord. We'd been watching the game, having some drinks, and Richie's drunk pod was the funniest one. I mean, that was my favorite, hands down, was the UNC pod with Richie.
Yeah, and so I went into that day thinking, let me drink early because I'm going to want to be in bed by halftime because we're going to get blown out, right? Well, that didn't happen, and typically I still would have been asleep on the couch, but I'm so excited. The adrenaline's running from the game, and that's all I remember. I don't remember anything about that podcast. I remember doing it. Don't remember what I said. I guess I kept it fairly clean because TJ actually posted it. That was a lot of fun for me, and I hope I'm not stepping on your shoes here, TJ. The entire John Proctor interview, he was just hilarious. I loved everything about him. Go back and listen to that one. The Olympics are still going on. But I did not know who John Proctor was this time a year ago, and now I'm a huge John Proctor fan.
Dude, and like you said, that kind of ties back in. That ties back in with the first one I talked about. Just he was texting me the other day from the Olympic Village, in Tokyo. Like, that's really cool, And he was, he was just hilarious, and it was really cool for him to be on the podcast as well, and yeah, his interview was fantastic. I have a couple other funny things. Obviously we've told the Charlie Ward story a million times. If you haven't heard it, long story short, I asked Charlie Ward if he was a vegan. I'm sorry, if he ate chicken tenders, liked Guthrie's or whatever. And he's like, dude, I'm a vegan. So like, that was embarrassing, right? Like, live on the air. I also love when we watched Coach Wyckoff, and the women's team beat Florida, and then Meat was watching some golf tournament that, I don't know, Brooks was playing or whatever the first time he came on. And it's like, these coaches come on, man, they're just big as fans we are, like they wanted to see the end of the shows or the games or whatever. And so to me, that was kind of funny looking back on that. Interview that surprised me the most, and Richie just kind of talked about it, was that Proctor interview. Like, he was fantastic. He was so good. And I didn't know him. I didn't know anything about him. I barely knew that we even had a diving team. Right. And so, shout out to he and Katrina. Katrina dives at like 2 a.m. So if you're listening to this on audio, she's already dove and hopefully did really well, but she dives like 2 a.m. I unfortunately probably will not make it to that, but I will wake up at 4 because I'm old and go pee and then see how she did. But Proctor, his interview definitely not shocked me, but I didn't know anything about him, and it was fantastic. It was so good. If you haven't heard it, you should go back and listen to it. He is phenomenal. He's a great interview. And I loved his. Also, I'll give a shout out here to Coach Almeida and Coach Hyde. Their interviews surprised me because they kept coming on like the day that their teams would like win massive games, or like the morning after their team would win a massive game. And like Coach Hyde she came on the Sunday night after they'd won the Tallahassee Regional. She came on after they won their the night of her winning they won the Sweet 16 in women's tennis. Coach Almeida came on when they qualified for Oklahoma City. She came on when they beat LSU. She came on after the regional. Like, she was there and she was down to hang out. And so, like, to give us that inside look of their program and to do it kind of real time was fantastic. So those definitely, it's not surprised. Like, I wasn't expecting it, but I wasn't expecting Coach Almeida to like jump on the pod like hours after, beating LSU and different things like that. So Richie Harlan interview that maybe shocked you a little bit.
Yeah, I have two off the top of my head. One, a guy that made almost $50 million in the NFL does not have reliable Wi-Fi. Antonio Cromartie, that shocked me a little bit, but we'll give him a pass. But I'll keep it in my little homer bubble that I'm in for this show. John Pock, I've followed his career loosely and then pretty heavily this past year, but never seen an interview or anything with him, although I know he's done them. But for him at 22 years old, he had just signed on he had literally just signed contracts with Nike and TaylorMade to be a professional golfer like a day or two before he came on the podcast. And I could not have been more impressed with his maturity, with his, sense of humor. It was truly like talking to a friend or someone you've known for a long time, and so casual. So I got to give John Pock some love. I thought he was phenomenal.
Harlan, you got one for this, or is it Nelson again?
Yeah, I hate to copy Richie, but mine was John Pock as well. Just because, I've met a lot of athletes throughout, playing college ball, and I'd never really talked to a golfer, so I didn't really know what to expect. But like Richie said, he was so laid back, and his sense of humor, and he's sitting there telling Richie, yeah, we can go see you can get closest to the hole, and maybe I can get you a driver. And then he starts talking about. Then he starts talking about, hitting with the baseball teams. Like, yeah, we're not really that athletic, so somebody got hurt, and so we don't do that anymore. And that one is the most surprised I've ever been. Just that.
I think my favorite one out of that one before we move on was when he said his dad used to make him hit like 800 balls a day on the weekend, and when his dad would look away, he'd just grab a handful, just throw them out in the range, so he wouldn't have to practice as long.
Yeah, he was fantastic. Like, you think about, like, sometimes you're like, oh, this kid. He's just a college kid. Like, he won't be. He was a great interview, yeah. and so, yeah, he was absolutely phenomenal. Next one we've got up. Okay, so this is a fun one. What do you think, Richie? What do you think the best episode that we did was? Like, do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first here? Like, I know that's hard.
Yeah,
but like, what do you think the best episode we did was?
All right. So this is our 91st episode. So you're asking me to pick one out of 90.
It's like your show, right?
Yeah. I think I'm probably going to go with the first time we had Michael Alford on, because I just thought it was such a good interview and I didn't know what to expect at the time. Right. And he was just so, we just talked about John Pock. He was very similar in terms of, it felt like a natural conversation. It wasn't like an interview. It was just like all of us just having a conversation with each other. And the fact that we helped boost, not to toot our own horn. I'm not saying we're the only reason this happened, but for them to get 500 plus new signups, within a few days of coming on the podcast. I thought it was cool. One, because Michael Alford's a super cool guy and I loved talking with him, but also it felt like we helped the university out and, our athletic departments who they need the money they can get. So if you're not a booster, please sign up, think about season tickets, but that's got to be me the first time, just because getting to meet him, seeing what a down-to-earth cool guy he is. And then again, the success we saw with boosters and the partnership it's formed ever since. For me, that's got to be it.
Yeah, no doubt. I think his was fantastic. Harlan, do you have this was the best episode we did, or?
Yeah, I missed the best episode that we ever did. I was moving back from Jacksonville and y'all interviewed Jeff Cameron. And I remember being upset, and I got to watch it on the way back home. But I was so upset when y'all got Jeff Cameron on the show that I couldn't be there.
Yeah. Jeff was absolutely fantastic. I'll say this. I think Jeff was our best interview as far as like an interview content piece. Like he is he talks for a living, right? Like, so like that, I'm sure that's not super surprising, but he talks for a living. He is so good to talk to. Like I could listen to Jeff talk for hours, and most people do every week. So Jeff was the best interview. I think that the actual specific content wise interview, he was really good. I really like the show we did just a couple of weeks ago, talking about the ACC kickoff conference expansion. We got Richie back now. ACC kickoff conference expansion and the big recruiting weekend that we had. There was no guest that week. And so I really think that, we used a lot of guests. We had a lot of guests over the last several months because it was the off season and you had different stuff going on. And it was just kind of pertinent to use different guests, look inside other programs and stuff like that. But for Richie and I to just I thought the flow and the camaraderie that show was just absolutely fantastic. Us going back and forth and not having to lean on a guest, right? And use them as the main content piece. I thought that one was really, really good. The weekend that we did a show in the middle of December after Florida State had beaten both Florida on the court and then Duke on the field, Florida and Miami obviously both lost both of their football and basketball games that same day. That was a fun show. We called it double wins, no L's. So that was a fun one as well to me. Like those were the outside of the interviews that we've talked about that we absolutely love. Those were really, really fun episodes to me. Would you guys say, okay, this is a tough one. This is like introspective for sure. We'll do a couple more and we'll get out of here. But like, what's one thing you've learned from the podcast? Or if you have a couple of things or whatever.
I know for sure. Right. So even with how good FSU was, late 80s, 90s, a kid born in 96 can still draft a better offense and defense.
That's amazing. I'm looking for something to be somewhat I was looking for something like serious, like, oh, you got to grind or you got to work hard or every week's a battle or something, SEC. Here comes Harlan with the jokes. That was good. That was fantastic.
Yeah, for me, it's
JJFSU on Twitter doesn't agree with you, but whatever.
for me, I think I have to go with we touched on this, but we started this thing knowing it'd be football heavy, had no idea we'd get to know so many different coaches and student athletes on campus, and just seeing that, you always know Florida State has a really good athletic department as a whole. But getting to know these people and seeing the work they put in that nobody else sees and nobody else gives them any shine, really, for the most part, I learned that, we have a lot of really good coaches and student athletes that don't get anywhere near the shine that they deserve. And I'm glad we've kind of been able to, be that vehicle for them to, get them in front of people, because the feedback we get, obviously you have your football heavy fan base, right? They only care about football stuff. The second we start talking about basketball, they turn it off. But we've gotten so much good feedback and comments from people saying, thank you for interviewing, Jen Hyde, Brooke Niles, Coach A, all of them, and learning that there is a lot of passion for these other sports, and just how many good coaches and athletes we have on campus. Just, not just inside, the football facility or the basketball facility. being able to grow it and learn about these people and get to know them personally, that's been awesome for me.
Yeah, I think for me, it's something I probably already knew, but then was able to just kind of apply to the podcast, that like whatever we want this podcast or this platform or our website or our social medias to be, we can literally do anything we want. You know, if you'd have told me a year ago that we were going to interview people like Kirk Herbstreit and Leonard Hamilton and Michael Alford and John Pock and Matt Nelson and, you know, Cromartie and D-Walk. I mean, I interviewed D-Walk on the roll up, but you know, D-Walk and just the, you know, I know Harlan doesn't know what this is, and maybe our young 96 and more recent folks aren't going to know who what a Rolodex is, but Coach Sue and Coach Wyckoff and Coach Hyde and Lonnie and Trey and At Watkins and Taylor
Brad
Walls,
Johnson,
Brad Johnson and Taylor Walls and man, just, you know, meat. We obviously talked about Reggie Northrup, Andy Staples. You know, like I don't think that I would have believed you. You know, Corey Simon, Devin Travis, like Everett Dawkins, yeah, like Greg Jones, like Griggs and Sam, like Myron Roll, like the list goes on. Charlie Ward, Anthony Beck, like it just goes on and on and on. And so, you know, if you'd have told me that we'd have been credentialed at the ACC kickoff, right? Like our ACC media days, whatever, like I would not have necessarily believed that. If you'd have told me that we were in talks with FSU about stuff like that, like up in Tallahassee, like I'd have been like, no way. You know, like I didn't think things would happen as quickly as they did, but you know, I kind of learned that if you work your butt off and treat it like a job as opposed to just like a fun hobby, and you work hard to get good guests and you work hard to develop good relationships and you work hard to hire a good team, which I think we've definitely done that. I'm trying to shout everybody out at the beginning of the show, but if you work hard and hire, I mean, you know, all this too can be yours, you know, or whatever. Like, right. Like it's just about putting in that effort level. And if all you want to do is sit around and talk about Florida State for an hour a week, and you don't want to do any of that outside of work, like there's nothing wrong with that. Like that's totally okay. But I think what makes, you know, what's kind of made us different and what's kind of set us apart when it comes to the FSU podcasts is that, I mean, we there's a lot of effort that goes into this. There's a lot of time that goes into this, more than just, you know, the hour or two that you see on Sundays or a pop-up episode. There's, you know, I spoke with 3 different FSU SID folks today, right? And booking interviews and asking questions about stuff. And that all takes time, right? Like, and I think that's, you know, Richie's reaching out to people for John Pock, or Richie's reaching out to Brad John. Like a lot of effort goes into this. And so I'm proud of the team that we have. I'm rambling at this point, so I don't really know how to wrap this up, but you know, if you want something to be big, if you want this to be big faster than you thought it could be, then just work your butt off and it can happen. I also really liked Harlan's answer, like, which wasn't serious at all.
No,
I'm just giving you a hard time. Like yours is, I mean, people are going to like yours more than mine anyway. Right? Like,
no, I would just say one other thing, just that, you know, you wouldn't learn this on Twitter, but even big shots, you know, these big coaches that, you know, they're big figures, and at FSU, everyone is typically a genuinely good person. People are willing to come on here and be on our small podcast and talk to us about FSU football. You know, all the guests you just mentioned. And if you sat on Twitter all day and read comments, you would never think you could get big guests like this. So I think TJ and both of y'all, you know, everyone's genuinely a good person, and that'd be what I've learned through all this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you know, I don't want to call the specific person out, but some of probably the best, and you know, we're kind of patting ourselves on the back right now, but it's our 1-year anniversary, and we'll get back to regular stuff on Sunday. But yeah, one of the best compliments that I think I've ever gotten as it relates to media in any ways is one of the coaches that has been on this podcast a couple of times or a few times, so it doesn't really narrow it down much, but told me that they liked coming on our show because it just felt like they were having a beer with an old friend, right? And that's how we want people to feel, right? Like I don't want to be so like corporate, so HR, so professional that people feel like uptight on our interview. I want to freaking ask them about chicken tenders, right? And have a good time with them and them leave feeling like, man, those guys are really cool. That was a lot of fun. Not like another interview, I want them to want to come back. And so I think that Richie and I and the team really have worked hard to try and develop those relationships and keep those relationships. And Harlan's completely right. Like I have loved every coach I coach Argro, like with track and field, like I forgot about him, but like I've loved every coach that we've had on. I do think they're just incredibly genuine people who love Florida State and care about it. And then when it comes to football, I mean, they're just massive football fans too, right? Like it's not just, they love their sport and they obviously have such passion for it, but they're all incredible people, and we're lucky and pretty blessed to have had them.
And TJ, just you were kind of mentioning like how we start with 1 year ago today. We started this thing, and one of the coolest compliments that I saw, and it wasn't directed at any of us individually, but at the podcast. I forget which game, but it was right before a football game last year. One of our listeners tweeted out something along the lines of, listen to Seminole Headlines, listen to Nolecast, listen to Double Fry, Snow Slaw, I'm ready for the game. And Headlines and Nolecast, both outstanding podcasts. They've been around for 10 plus years. And for someone to lump our brand new podcast in with that, I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, no doubt. When we started getting mentioned in the names of like you said, the On the Bench and the Wake Up War Chant and those ones that have been around forever, I don't think we're anywhere close to what those guys do. First of all, just from a stylistic approach, like we're just fans sitting around talking about stuff and doing silly little contests with fan voting and stuff like that for Player of the Year and all that. But we don't really do the same kind of show as those guys. But for people to want to listen to our show as well, like that's cool, and they do. Like thousands of you crazy people tune in every week to hear this, and we're appreciative, because if nobody listened or nobody followed us on social media or nobody cared about anything we said, we probably still do this, but we probably would do it less and it would matter less. So thank you guys for your support. Again, I hate to be cliche, but like anything else, we couldn't do anything without the fans, right? Like that's really the only reason we do it. Anything else you want to get now that I'm going to cry? Anything else you guys want to talk about? Anything else over the last year? Like, I mean, I don't know. You guys have any goals for this year? You want to talk about anything else that's happened over the last year, or you just want to wrap this up again?
I would just shout out the tailgate. I still have yet to meet Richie in person. I've met TJ in person a few times, but I'm ready to be at the Notre Dame game, tailgating, and I hope to see people that tune into this podcast just to meet. I'd love to meet someone who's like, yeah, I tune in every week, or I listen to it every week, and I'm just really looking forward to that Sunday.
I think that'll be a lot of fun, especially, and it's going to be difficult with recruiting weekends and everything, but a couple coaches that have been on the podcast do plan to stop by. It'll be cool to meet them in person. Obviously, TJ and I got to meet Coach Hyde in person here in Orlando when they were in the Sweet 16, which was, it was brief, but it was really cool. And then we talked to her for like 30 minutes via FaceTime, afterwards. So I'm definitely looking forward to that, but it's just been a lot of fun. It's the first year. It seems like it flew by with everything, starting the podcast right before the worst Florida State season of our lifetimes in the middle of a pandemic. And we're still here, and the feedback, is mostly positive. Hey, some of you don't like us. Cool. Don't listen, but no, still listen, even if you don't like us. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun getting to know, all of you guys through the chat. And like you, Harlan, I'm excited. Hopefully the whole team can make it to Tallahassee for Notre Dame weekend. I still need to get a hotel or Airbnb. I am slacking and going to pay way too much money at this point, but that's okay. We'll be up there, and we're excited. Like you said, man, just to meet everybody. Listeners, if you want to stop by, shoot us a DM. We'll let you know the location. We're not going to put it out in the public for everybody because we don't have enough chicken tenders or beer for all the listeners that listen every week. But I'm excited, and again, year one in the books. I'm excited to see what year two brings.
I hope year two's better on the football field.
Yeah, me too. I'm predicting more than 3 wins, so I'll take that. Harlan, I will say this about that weekend. I know we've hung out a couple of times. I have hung out with Richie in person a couple of times. It's not really that special. Like, it's not really a big deal at all. My favorite thing about the show is me and Richie constantly going back and forth at each other. We really do like each other. But I know you would never know that from listening to this show.
I cannot wait for the NFL to start back up so I can hear more about Tom Brady versus Jameis and New Orleans Saints versus Bucks. That's the highlights that I love when it happens, because it goes on for like 10 minutes off topic every single time I'll bring it up. So
I'm actually, it won't go too far. I think I'm buying a Jameis jersey, guys, for the Saints.
For your wife or for yourself?
For the wife. It'll be a woman's one for the wife. You know, Drew Brees was her guy for the longest time. She said she really wants an Alvin Kamara one. I'm like, nah, I think I'm going to get you Jameis.
So I mean, I think Jameis will do okay this year. I mean, not to go too far into this, but you can't have a show without me, being a homer for him.
Yeah.
But I do think that their schedule is just murderer's row compared to the Bucs schedule, which is really one of the easier ones in the NFL. The Bucs had the benefit of losing. Like, if you're going to lose, like, the NFL is not set up for you to
lose your division, win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, because then you get to play, all of the second place teams. Yeah. So where the who do the Bucs play? The Bears,
Cowboys, Bears.
Yeah, they play the Bears,
Giants,
and the Saints. The Saints have to play the Packers, right? And so it's just that's kind of it's crappy the way that kind of works out. So
I think that was phenomenal planning by Bruce Arians, though, to not win the division, knowing he could win 3 straight on the road and then go home for the Super Bowl. Phenomenal.
Listen, you can say anything you want about Tom Brady, and it's really hard for me to argue about it, but don't come on this podcast saying that Bruce Arians is a good coach. Don't do that at all. That's they won that Super Bowl in spite of him. I mean, it might be a nice guy, it might not be, but he's a terrible coach. That was Brady and the talent around him that won the Super Bowl. It was really the defense showing up like crazy, because Brady wasn't very good the first few games, but Bruce Arians is not a good coach.
I was going to say, was it Brady and the talent around him he said wasn't very good and would probably make the playoffs and lose week 1 or game 1 of the playoffs? Because that's what he said.
They nearly did, right? They barely beat Washington. No. It was under 500. Yeah, they won by 8 points.
They never trailed. That game was never close.
The game was an 8-point game with Washington driving down the field. And then the third string quarterback threw an interception. So yeah, congratulations on that very impressive win. No,
anyways, let's wrap this up.
I mean, Richie's trying to go back and forth. Like I said, Arians we're not going to praise Arians on this show. I might have to edit that out. But yeah, I think the Bucs have a really easy schedule and the Saints don't. So it'll be a surprise to me if the Saints can do anything but win the wild card. I don't even know if that happens. So, but I do think Jameis will have a good year.
I do too. Yeah.
All right. Any closing thoughts? I don't think we have anything else. No shout outs. We just shouted ourselves out for an hour, so I don't want to shout anybody else out. We'll see you guys maybe for a pop-up episode before Sunday, but if not, we'll see you guys on Sunday. We've got a fun episode planned, some stuff in the works. Obviously, go support the boosters if you haven't done that. If anyone has done that and wants to support more, you can go to similarlyexperience.com. Check them out. Obviously, always brought to you by Guthrie's. Visit both their locations in Tallahassee and tell them we sent you. Get a free drink. Who wants the song this week? I had last week's. Right?
You're not doing it to me. You're not doing it to me. One of you's got it.
Richie.
I will text you the song. I want to think of a 1 year. How about give me Corey Smith maybe next year, just because staying on theme.
Okay.
I've never heard that song in my life, but
it's a phenomenal song, by the way, and it's the story of my life probably. So when you listen to it, you'll be like, "Oh, that makes a lot of sense."
I was going to go Welcome to the Future by Brad Paisley, but no, this one's good. I like maybe next year. So, all right. For myself, TJ Pittenger, Richie Barnes, Harlan Harris, all the guys that help us out on the back end with graphics and social media and writing and everything else, we will see you guys later. Go Noles. Happy 1 year anniversary to us.